Have you ever seen those musicians who can just listen to a song once and figure the whole thing out? No tabs, no sheet music, they just listen to it, maybe fiddle around a bit with their instrument, and they know the song? Well, you're probably thinking to yourself, they've got to be a musical genius or a prodigy or something to be able to do that, right? Nah. Now, I kind of feel like I'm exposing a magic trick here a little bit, and some tribunal of musicians is gonna come after me and get me in trouble, but honestly, it's really easy, and even a beginner can do it. So in this video, I'm gonna show you a 3-step system to find the chords to almost any song. Let's get into it. So the 2 things you need to know are the note names on the E and A string, and the major scale and scale degrees. Now, if you've already watched these videos of mine, you can feel free to skip through this section, but if you haven't, I'll give you the quick version right now. So to find the note names on the low E string, the way I like to do it is I like to memorize my fret markers first. So that would mean that this is an open E, then we go F, F sharp, G, so that's G right there, then G sharp, then we go to A right here, then we go A sharp, then we got B, and then there's no B sharp, so we go to a C, then to a C sharp, then next we have a D right here, then a D sharp, then a D. Okay, so for the A string, we've got A when it's open, then we've got A sharp, then we've got a B, then there's no B sharp, so we go C, C sharp, then a D on the 5th fret, then we've got a D sharp, then next we've got an E at the 7th fret here, then there is no such thing as E sharp, so we get an F, then F sharp on the 9th, G on the 10th, G sharp, and A. And just remember the 12th fret is the point where you complete an octave, so after that it just repeats as if it were down here. You'll also need to know the note names on the high E string, but since the high E string and the low E string have the exact same notes, you should already know it. And then the other thing we need to talk about is the major scale. Now, as I said earlier, this kind of deserves its own video. So if you don't know anything about the major scale, maybe pause this one, go in the description, check out that video, and then come back here. But if you know the gist of the major scale, then you're probably gonna be okay. What we need to talk about is something called scale degrees. So the major scale is a scale made up of 7 notes, and all the chords inside of a key come from a major scale. And the way that we figure that out is we take our major scale and we number each note. So every note in the major scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, every note is going to have a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that would sound something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then there's no 8 because this completes the octave, 1. Now I just played a C major scale, and when we play in the key of C, all of our chords in the key of C come from that scale. So what that means is the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and back to C, all have chords that correspond with them. So that would mean there's a C chord, a D chord, an E chord, an F chord, and so on, right? Now, knowing whether they're supposed to be major or minor comes down to a formula. We'll just call it the major-minor formula. And what that formula is that each number is going to have a corresponding major or minor. So for example, the 1 chord is always major. So no matter what key you're in, that 1 chord, whether it's in the key of C, that 1 chord is going to be a C major. If you're in the key of D, that 1 chord is going to be a D, it's going to be a D major. Okay, so the whole formula is the 1 chord is major, the 2 chord is minor, the 3 chord is minor, the 4 chord is major, the 5 chord is major, the 6 chord is minor, and then the 7th chord is a little bit weird and different, and we don't use it that often, but it is a diminished chord. So what that means is no matter what key we're in, no matter where our major scale starts and stops, our 1 chord will always be major. Our 4 and 5 chords will always be major. Then our 2, 3, and 6 chords, they'll always be minor. And if you think about it, that makes sense, right? The most common chords that get used in music are usually the 1, 4, 5, and 6. The 7th doesn't get used a ton, and then the 2 and 3 get used, but maybe not as frequently. So in the key of C, if we've got a C major is our 1 chord, right? Then our 4 chord is an F. The 4th note of the C major scale is F, so here's our F chord. It's major. Then our 5 chord is a G, major. Then our 6th chord would be an A. It would not be major, it would be minor. And that makes sense if you think if I played those chords, it would sound weird if they were different. Now, when you use open chords and you're trying to think about scale degrees, it actually becomes a little bit tough because open chords are kind of always rooted in a different spot and it's not very clear visually what you're doing. So I like to use bar chords or even power chords to create kind of like a movable roadmap so that no matter what key I'm in, the chord shapes will always be in the same positions. So it would look like this. Let's find our one chord of a key. Let's say G. G major is the key that we're in. So that would follow the G major scale. So we find a G note on the low E string. That's where we're going to be basing the roadmap off of, right here. If we were to work up the scale along the one string, it would look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. But it's not realistic to be playing bar chords all the way up and all the way down, especially if you've got to make quick changes, right? So what we do is we spread it onto the A string. So it would look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 7 would be there, but we're not even going to worry about that because most songs don't use that 7 chord, like I said. So you can see 1 right above it is 4. 2 right above it is 5. 3 right above it is 6. So everything lines up nice and perfect. Now, if we were to play bar chords, so hopefully you know some basic bar chord shapes, we can then apply our major minor formula. So our one chord would be major, right? 2 chord would be minor. So we go to the 2 position, then 3 chord minor. Now, instead of continuing to the 4th, we would go back to the A string for the 4th, which is right above the 1 like this, and we'd play a major chord shape. Then we continue up to the 5. And then for the 6th, we would play that minor shape, right? So rooted on the A string, we play this minor shape, which is an E minor. So that means that the chords that naturally exist inside the key of G are going to be G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor. Then we would have an F sharp diminished, but again, we're not even going to worry about that in this lesson. Now, if I took this whole concept and I shifted it around, let's say we wanted to go to A sharp, for example. Well, what we can do is we can go along that low E string and find an A sharp. So count all the way up. We know that the 5th fret is an A, so then that is an A sharp. So then that means our one chord is an A sharp. Then we've got 2 right here, minor, 3 minor. Then we go back to the 4. Again, the A sharp is here, so right above it, right there, right above it. We've got our 4 chord, which is also major. Then 5 major. And then 6 minor. And so if we came up with a random chord progression, a very standard one is something we call a 1, 5, 6, 4. So the 1 chord, the 5 chord, the 6 chord, the 4 chord. In this key, we could go 1, 5, 6, 4. Right? So as you can see, the roadmap that we're calling it doesn't actually change when we move up and down the fretboard. That 4 chord is always going to be right above your 1 chord. Okay, so that's enough theory. Now we can get into our 3-step system. So step 1 is finding the key. So when we're listening to the song, we need to find the key before we can find the chords. And there are a few ways to do this, but I found the easiest way is to use a little scale shape, a little major scale shape, and to move it around until it sounds right. So the scale shape we'll use is one that I've used in many other lessons, which is just a simple major scale that looks like this. And what I'm going to do is as I listen to the music, I'm going to play that shape and I'm going to move it up and down. And there's only going to be one position on the entire fretboard where every single note I play sounds like it fits. Now, this is going to take some practice, a little bit of ear training. You're not going to get it instantly, but once you start connecting your fingers to your ears, you'll see that it comes pretty quick. Let me show you a quick example. Okay, so we're listening to the song, we can hear the chords that are happening, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our major scale shape, and I'm gonna start moving it around until it kind of sounds good. hear so far, nothing sounds right. That one definitely doesn't sound right. So you can hear right there every note. Every note sounds like it fits inside of this key. To me, it sounds right. So since that is where that major scale sounded right, what that means is we just need to find the root note of that scale. So it was on the 12th fret, and it ended up here on the 15th fret, low E string, 15th fret, which is the same as the 3rd fret, right? Because the octave repeats. So we'd go E, F, F sharp, G. So G, G major, the key of the song is in G major. So for step 2, now that we know the key of the song, now we get to use our little chord roadmap that I showed you earlier and apply it to the song. So because the key of the song is in G major, that means we find a G note on our low E string, right there, the 3rd fret, and we find our diatonic chords, which are our chords that naturally occur inside of this key. So we've got G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor. And once you've identified those, we can go right to step 3, which is to listen and locate. And what I mean by that is use your ear to listen to the song, listen to where the chords change, because you can hear where the chords change, and try out the different chords to see which ones from that key, from your allowed chords, fit the song. So before I show you another example, we've got step 1, which is finding the key of the song. We've got step 2, which is identifying your chord roadmap. And then we've got step 3, which is to listen and locate which chords exactly from the key are being played. All right, so we've got the key, which is G major. We know that much so far. Then we've got our chords. So it's probably gonna be what sounds like 2 of those chords. So it sounds like it's going from one chord to another chord and then just back to that same first chord. So let's try a few of them. Let's just start with the G. Which sounds like it fits right away. Doesn't sound like any of those chords. And then, nope, nope. That sounds right. So it's that chord, G major. And it sounds like it's just going up to the 4 chord, which is a C major. So that was a pretty easy one. It only had 2 chords in the song, so it was pretty easy to find out. And the cool thing is that if you feel like things aren't quite going right, you can kind of just go back and start that step-by-step system over again, because there's not multiple right answers, right? It's definitely 2 chords from the key of G major, and it's definitely the G major and the C major. So let me show you how to do this on a couple more songs. Okay, so first I always listen to the chord progression first. Then we'll just start in a random spot. And that sounds right already. That is on the high E string at the 12th fret, which means E. And because E's kind of awkward up here, we can actually play it open. We can imagine that this is a bar, so E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sounds like it's the 6 minor chord, then the 4 chord, and the 1 chord. That sounds right. Every other chord would sound wrong there. So C sharp minor, A, E. So just to recap what happened there, we found that we were in the key of E major because that was the major scale that sounded right over the track, which starts and ends on an E note. That being an E, 12th fret of the high E string. And then our chord roadmap is kind of awkward because normally to go to an E, you'd have to like go here, but we're not gonna play 1, 4, 5, 6, all the way up there like that, right? It's a little bit unrealistic. So instead, we can move it all the way down, but it does give us access to 2 open chords, right? Because there's nowhere to put your bar right here, so we just have an open E chord. And then here we would have our 2, minor 2, which is an F sharp. Then our minor 3, which is a G sharp. And then for our 4 chord, right above our E major, it would be an open chord as well, because we don't need to bar. So A major. Then we would have a B major as our 5, and a C sharp minor as our 6. And then you can listen to when the chords change, and just through trial and error, you can find which chords fit. You're gonna be slow at it to start. You'll get faster the more you practice. To be honest, the way that the pros do it, they basically go through all these steps lightning fast. And the reason is a lot of popular music especially is just a bunch of patterns, and we've seen it before, and it's the same pattern just in a slightly different spot, so it's very quick and easy for people to pick up on. So I'm gonna give you one more example just so you really get the hang of the steps. Okay, so let's find the key. You can start random spot. Nope. That sounds like it fits. So we've got 8th fret, so that's a C. Right? So E, G, A, B, then there's no B sharp, so that would be a C. Okay, so let's find a C. C right here, right? Because we know low E string, C. Okay, so that sounds like, it sounds like it's going at the end. So what's the first part? The 2 chord, and then it goes to the 1 chord. Okay, so we go D minor to C major, then up to the A minor, and then G major. So now, when you're first starting, you're not nearly gonna be this fast, and don't feel like you have to be. It's gonna take you time to develop your ear. Now, the songs I used as examples are really just doing the same chord progression throughout the entire song, but there are many songs out there that change chord progressions throughout the song, but usually they're always in the same key. So what that means is that when you get to, let's say, from the verse to the chorus, if the chords change, and you can tell that the chords change, you can skip step 1. Right? You don't need to find the key, you know the key. Then you can go back to your roadmap and you can listen and you can locate the exact chords that are being played. Again, this is gonna take you some time at first and there'll probably be a lot of failure, but the more you do it, the faster you'll be. So one important thing to note with all this is that I didn't touch on non-diatonic chords, and that's because I can only fit so much information into one video before I totally overwhelm you. But there are songs and chord progressions out there that do pull chords that are outside of the key. So non-diatonic, we talked about diatonic being chords that naturally occur, so ones that come from that major scale. But in a lot of modern popular music, you're not really gonna see that too much. So we'll cover that in a part 2 of this video down the road. Now, tabs and sheet music are great. They're an amazing resource and you can absolutely learn from them and they're awesome. But I am a firm believer in learning how to play your instrument by ear. A lot of guitar players get stuck in this rut where they learn some basic principles and then they jump into learning tabs of songs they like. But when you do that, you really just plateau and you don't become a better musician. You don't necessarily become more creative or a better songwriter. And what I want to do on this channel is help you break free of those chains and break past that upper beginner intermediate state that so many guitar players get caught in. So if you want to see more guitar lessons like this and really take your playing from the bedroom or the basement to the stage, head down below the video and hit the subscribe button and make sure you ring the notification bell because I release a new guitar video every single week. With that being said, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. It really honestly means a lot to me and I will see you in the next one.